Remember, remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason, and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot.
Hi, Chris. Chris German.
Hey!
How you doing?
Thank you for having me here today.
Oh, yeah. This is Chuck Edson, Chris German, and we're here with formerly Kiva Circle or Kiva's Corner, whichever you prefer. This is the version we hope to make into a private nonprofit. We're trying to emulate Kiva Sugarman and the man behind Sugarman's Corner and his motto, "I ain't mad at nobody." We try to live by that here. Chris joined our team here just after Tiffany Beach here helped us out too. She's manning the cameras and sound. Chris does the editing and has been helping me a lot in this. And yeah, I would like to just take it from there. We aren't real clear on who's going to ask what questions, but I believe we're going to begin with Chris asking me something.
Well, this is an introduction of sorts. We put a bunch of videos out there. Our YouTube channel has at least 5 or 6 videos up there at this point. And we're going to take an opportunity today, I think, to try and put more of a finer point on what is Kiva Circle and what we're doing here. We had a phenomenal weekend. We were over at the farmers market, and we also put a survey up on Facebook. We've got about 20 responses now so far for that, and there seems to be a very similar results we got from that so far. We got about 20, as I said, 20 responses, and pretty much everybody said they don't think the politicians listen to them. That is a commonality between everybody we talked to this weekend, and quite frankly, it's a problem here in Klamath County, is it not?
Yes, and one of the things we asked too was how comfortable they are, kind of a political mood question, how they feel about talking to their neighbors. And I'm sure this applies to friends and relatives too, how comfortable they are having conversations. I know my wife directs me all the time, don't talk politics.
Don't talk politics.
Don't talk politics. Well, that's what's on everybody's mind. The problem is when we talk politics, we immediately get mad. And until I got acquainted with Kiva and worked on myself for 2 or 3 years, I was getting mad. And you're not going to influence anybody positively if you're angry at them and telling them how they have to change. That's going to...
Well, they say the top 3 subjects you have to leave out of social conversation is politics, religion, and sex. And we're not covering religion or sex in this, so we have left politics.
Yeah, well, then there's also finances, but...
Well, yeah.
Well, let's include finances, but take finances out, but include sex. I mean, anyway. Okay, okay, well, we've also kind of naming this episode Guy Fawkes Day. And Chris pointed out to me a couple of days ago, I'm very concerned about the election this year. It's only 5 months away or something like that. We got basically an international election with our president, and we've got 2 or 3 very important local elections going on here too. I'm more worried about the presidential election and very concerned about what happened following the 2020 election, and it's way too easy to imagine it happening again. And
just for all the millennials out there that don't know about Guy Fawkes, because they didn't see any for data, let's talk about what Guy Fawkes really was about.
Beneath this mask, there is more than flesh. Beneath this mask, there is an idea, Mr. Creedy. And ideas are bulletproof.
And there's a poem, if you've ever heard the poem. It goes, remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. I can think of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. And the point of all that is that Guy Fawkes, back in the 1600s, 1500s, something like that, he decided he was going to blow up Parliament. And he thought the politicians had completely gone awry in England, and he was going to blow the whole thing sky high. And he packed the basement of Parliament with gunpowder, and he was going to set it all off, and he was going to blow it up. It didn't work for him. He got caught. But the point of the matter is that he's a bit of a folk hero because he is an anti-government. He is an anti-hero. He's the man that says, you know what, we should throw this all out and we should start again.
Blow it up.
Blow it all up, yeah.
Yeah,
and we're not advocating that anybody blow anything up at this point, but we do have similar. I think you and I share a similar ideology that something's really broke around here.
Yeah.
And we need to fix it.
Yeah, and if you and I can get along,
anybody can get along. Yeah.
So, yeah, and a little more about Guy Fawkes. He was a Catholic. This wasn't long after the Reformation. Martin Luther, sometime in the 1500s, broke from the Catholic Church. Guy Fawkes was a Catholic, and he didn't like the fact that King James was a Protestant, and so religion comes into it. Religion and politics definitely come together.
But
And,
thankfully, the
faith.
four founders of our country said religion is not part of our political machinations, so we don't have to talk about religion here, do we?
Yeah, well, that's a goal. Yeah.
All right.
We know some of the contradictions here. So yeah, I'm worried about what may happen again. Remember January 2021, and we think there are good examples out there in the world and here in the United States where there are means to relieve the pressure, ways to go about having these difficult conversations between divided parties, divided groups, just by following some basic rules of civility and respect and learning to listen. And I've done, it's only been the last 2 or 3 years, I've learned you can learn a lot from people with whom you entirely disagree. And that these people used to be looking for enemies, now I'm finding friends among people, or people that I enjoy with much different ideas and values than I have.
Like this past weekend, we talked to a myriad of different political beliefs, I think, from various people. We talked to a ton of people at the farmers market.
Yeah.
And I didn't talk to anybody I didn't like. I didn't talk to anybody that I talked to one guy that was really weird, and he thought we should arm everybody, and I had to put a kibosh on that. But other than that, I mean, all my neighbors are my friends, as far as I'm concerned. I am living in Klamath County. There's nobody I can say I really don't like in Klamath County. I'm new here. I don't know everybody, obviously, but the point of the matter is that we can be friends. We can understand each other. We can live together. We can be in the same neighborhood. We don't always have to agree on politics.
Yeah.
And we're not trying to do that. We're not trying to make everybody agree on politics, but what we are trying to do is get everybody into the same room so that we can talk about these issues and we can come up with a good solution.
If we don't find a way to to get along, we're going to continue in what we're doing. One group wants to go this way and the other group wants to go that way, and when that group goes this way, the other group fights it, and we're putting all our energy into blocking each other rather than finding some kind of common ground, some kind of consensus. The consent of the governed that I think our forefathers foresaw here. And among my neighbors, I'm friends with all of them except one, but he just chooses not to be friends. So, and I've talked to a lot of people the last 2 or 3 years, and virtually everybody prefers to be friendly.
And we all agree about certain things. As Americans, we do, right? We all agree the U.S. Constitution is the thing that we have to give some respect to.
There's the preamble to it right there.
We all agree that the preamble is one of the best things ever written in the American lexicon, right?
Right.
We all agree the Declaration of Independence is something that we should strive to, and we should definitely hold in some deference. And we all agree that we should salute our flag, and we all want to support our military. And we agree on these things. We have so many things we do agree on as a community. Why are we fighting each other so much on the things we don't agree on?
Well, because I believe that it's promoted by the duopoly that Catherine, I forget her last, Gell calls it. She says that Washington isn't broken, it's fixed. That means it's set up to be, promotes division, and the states, and according to the Constitution, can run elections any way they want. The two parties have come up with this primary system that guarantees that the extremes go on to the major elections. And there are just lots of ways that I think the consensus of citizens would be there's a better way. And
honestly, I think is one of the reasons why we in Klamath County have had such a difficult time coming together. because everybody's either a Republican or a Democrat or a liberal or a conservative. But we have nonpartisan elections around here. So we have non-political elections around here, supposedly.
Right.
And we're not supposed to have parties for that. But we're using this excuse to say what's happening in Washington is making us not get along with our neighbor. And that's just not the case, because we are living next to each other.
Yeah.
And we are part of the same county.
Yeah, and we did see, like I think we mentioned, there's a pretty significant degree of apprehension, I guess, among citizens in this county too.
Yeah.
And not as bad as I feared it might be, but so I look at the Declaration of Independence as basically a statement of anti-authoritarianism. We don't want you, King George, telling us how to do things anymore. We can do it better ourselves. The Constitution, the preamble here, let's take a look at that. Anyway, I got it written down here somewhere. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, and ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, which we certainly do in our military, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain this Constitution. There's one thing here I'd really like to point out, the ensure domestic tranquility point. I don't know if our government could really help us with that, but Chris and I were just talking a minute ago that in a respect our government, problem is our government does represent us, and government's dysfunctional because we're dysfunctional, and I think the party system promotes it. So it's a vicious, confusing circle that we, the people, I think, have to get ourselves out of.
Well, and the concept of domestic tranquility. We were just talking, as you said before, and we're talking about, where I came from in Connecticut, it was all about neighbor versus neighbor, because half the country was for England and half the country at that time was for the Revolution. I mean,
We're talking 1770s.
Yeah, the 1776. But as you headed west, the Native Americans got involved in that battle, and the Native Americans were being used as a weapon to undo the blessings of liberty in this nation and whatnot. And the founders thought about this stuff. They understood that we had westward expansion in our minds. We were going to have a big country down the line. They knew that was going to happen, but they also told us that we should expect our government to be responsible for ensuring domestic tranquility. And quite frankly, I think you and I agree, it's not necessarily up to the government to ensure domestic tranquility because they're not good at it.
Yeah.
It's better that we ensure our own domestic tranquility.
Yeah,
we get along with our neighbors, that we decide what's going on.
We are working to become a non-government, non-profit civic organization made up of we the people. And this just occurred to me too, whatever, we hope to create a board of directors, and that board to represent our community, no doubt, I mean, our community, our county is 70% Republicans and conservatives. I think this organization needs to represent that. Now, what I am, I guess I'm liberal, maybe I'm a libertarian, I have a lot of conservative values. I'm confused, but I think I would be identified here, whether I like it or not, as a liberal, so I will take that. And by the way, the most liberal document in the world probably is our Constitution Declaration, but that said, lead me out of this now, Chris. Here, I walked myself in, and now where do I go?
Well, let's talk about what we're doing with Kiva's Corner, or Kiva's Circle. It used to be the corner, now we're talking about a circle. But what is our goal here? What is our missions? What are our purposes in Kiva's Circle? We should tell them about that because I think they'd like to know.
Well, our mission, I believe, is just to, first of all, save the world or whatever, but to demonstrate here in Klamath County that this can work. And that
deliberative democracy.
Deliberative democracy, this approach to dealing with one another, working in an organized fashion with help from moderators and facilitators. And there are lots of people in Klamath Falls and Klamath County who can do this. I think it would be best if we got a group of us who kind of agreed on some common principles and practices, but that should be pretty easy. So that's one of the things. You want to run some demonstrations on how this kind of a system can work.
And we want to do it this summer.
Yeah, this summer.
We want to have a meeting of the various and sundry people that are here in Klamath County. We want to get a cross-section of all of the different voters, all the different minds that are in this county. We want to put them together in a room, and we want to take on an issue. We want to put an issue on the table and have them kick that around until it's dead in the face. And when it's done and we've decided how we're going to take that decision that this group of people has made, and we're going to hand it to the commissioners. And we're going to ask the commissioners to respect this decision because it was made up of the people.
Or the city council.
Or the city council. But the issue I think we're going to talk about is public safety.
Yeah.
And one of the issues that, as a reporter working around here, I learned is that there are so many communities that do not have the benefit of a sheriff, of the sheriff, our county sheriff. They do not get the regular patrols. They do not get the regular protections. They do not feel protected by the sheriff. And the reason that is because we don't have the money to pay for a sheriff. So what we're thinking is that if we got a bunch of people together from all over Klamath County and we put them all together in a room, we could come up with an idea to better protect the people of Klamath County.
Or several ideas. Yeah, and whatever comes out of it. This would, the advantage is this isn't one of those hot button issues that's on the agenda in the national election.
This has nothing to do with federal policy. This has nothing to do with state government. Tina Kotek is not coming down here to be part of our little meeting. This is entirely local politics. This is entirely about us as voters here in Klamath County coming together to make a decision for the betterment of Klamath County.
Yeah, and again, we would want to do some kind of vetting or screening of people who are interested in doing it. I'm going to throw out a philosophical term that hopefully impresses you. It's called doxastic closure, which means a person with their mind is completely closed. It's made up. There's no sense talking to me about this. It's a matter of faith. I ain't changing it no matter what you say or do. We're probably going to want to screen those people out. Somebody who has an official position representing some interest or other, well, we don't want that person involved in a subject that involves that interest that they're obligated or obliged to. So there's some ways we want to look at it, at people, regardless of what they believe, they're willing to listen to other people, discuss some. One of the practices of deliberative democracy, too, is that the interests come together and find experts to represent the various interests or perspectives and come up with the impartial evidence or impartial information to support the various perspectives. So the groups, the larger group breaks up into smaller groups, maybe 8 or 10 people. There's a moderator with each small group who keeps things on topic, make sure everybody talks on the subject and civilly. And then there are experts on hand to answer questions. After the small groups meet, they meet in the larger group, the complete group again, and sort it all out and come to agreements as to what should be done.
Because we're not making this up. This is not something we've decided. This is an ancient thing that used to come from the ancient Greeks decided that deliberative democracy was a thing. And the best example of ever a successful deliberative democracy session, I think, came out of Ireland. And they were talking about abortion rights and how abortion rights would be adjudicated in Ireland. And they had a deliberative democracy meeting, and they decided about abortion rights in Ireland. Now, we're not trying to decide abortion rights here in Klamath County. We don't have those heady issues to be discussed here. What we do have discussed here is how this county is going to look in 20 years. What's it going to be in 20 years when, these people that are in office now aren't in office anymore, and we have to have people have farms out there, and we have all these people living all over the county. what are their worlds going to look like?
Chris, you're even more passionate about this than I am.
I'm very passionate about this.
I don't think you meant to say petty when you mentioned abortion, however.
It's not a petty issue, but it doesn't affect Klamath County.
True. Well, yeah. But, and in Ireland, very much a Catholic nation, and abortion is a big issue there for sure. Ireland got together 99 citizens, asked them to create a referendum that, what they thought the best solution would be. This group came up with a referendum that called for freedom of choice for the first 90 days and then medical decisions after. I don't know the particulars, but Ireland passed it by a sizable majority in a national election. There's also lots of other examples. And in the United States, there's probably never heard of this, Deliberative Democracy Lab in Stanford University. Pretty prestigious school, but they're doing some excellent work in this field of deliberative democracy. Back in 2019, we remember that. We were in the heat of battle in our campaigns here. And with the University of Chicago, I think they identified 550 American citizens across the nation and got them and paid them to study like a 60-page manual that covered immigration, national economy, and I don't know, I forget, there were 5 issues, and they studied these things, they discussed them over 4 or 5 days, came back, and they reached 29 propositions for the nation to consider. 22 of them were very strongly supported by the very strong consensus of the groups. Stanford did polls of people's opinions before and after this. The reds were here and the blues were there, and afterwards they were like this. And
let's put a finer point on that, okay?
Okay.
When they were done talking, they liked each other.
Oh yeah, well,
they got along together. They understood each other better. It was a better community because they came together and they talked.
95% of them said they'd do it again. I think that is a pretty remarkable statistic, I'd say. And I've participated in a little bit of this, nothing to the degree I hope to. And
well, that's a question I've wanted to ask you. Can I ask you a question?
Fun. Yeah.
Where did you learn about deliberative democracy? How did you get on this whole jag of I want to fix Klamath County through deliberative democracy? How did you find that?
Well, I've been since 2015. I've been obsessed with the state of our nation and what to do about it, and been studying human nature, philosophy, history, all kinds of subjects. And because
your history, you were a parole agent. What were you?
Well, yeah, I ran probation and parole here for 8 years. And I've worked with a lot of criminals. I specialize with sexual offenders, and I can tell you a lot of stories about how a man's mind can justify actions.
But that's why he sounds like a college professor half the time when he's talking about
these things, I taught
so
in
many
college.
years.
I've been a college professor. I apologize. Yeah.
But so you got into deliberative democracy back in 2015.
No, I didn't discover it until December of 2024.
Oh, really?
And I've been looking into this stuff for 9 years now, and it wasn't until
and this is the
5 months ago or 6 months ago I heard about it.
Okay.
It's a secret.
I mean, it's a secret here, anyway.
I mean, yeah, nobody's heard of it, but when you tell people what it is, they say, yeah, that makes sense. And what do you know? It's what Native Americans were doing. It's what humanity did before we became civilized, I think. But that's another lecture. But
now, talk to me about the videos you've been putting out.
Oh, well, yeah.
Because we have a bunch of videos up on our YouTube channel. We're going to have a bunch more coming out. But so far we've covered human conformity. We've covered corruption 1 and 2. And then we also have 3 other interviews up there right now that people can watch. What were the purposes of these videos? Why'd you decide to do that?
Well, the first ones you mentioned, I call information and opinions, and there are 5 of them, I think it is, that kind of cover a broad perspective of what I think the problems are from a historical perspective, and looking back through history, starting in Greece and Western civilization, and what went on in Europe during the Reformation, and all of this stuff, and all the wars we've had about politics and religion and all of these issues. And then in the 1700s, there was the Enlightenment, and this was the liberal movement of democracy and freedom and individual rights and stuff that we seem to think divide us, but I think are definitely all both liberal and conservative values that we share, thank you. And I guess the main problem is that I'm calling them liberal, but, and conservatives love them too when it comes to this part. So that's stuff I believe we really have in common. But we've got to, I think, probably beginning in my lifetime that in America things started getting pretty tough, the 60s and the Vietnam War conflict. And so I was brought up in the 50s. I think that gives me a different perspective, historical perspective that most people don't have. And I was in the thick of that. It was pretty awful. And then there became the time in the 80s where things started becoming politicized, I think. Those guys and these guys and good guys and bad guys. In the 50s, there were the communists and stuff, but
we were still just getting over World War II in the 50s. And we were unified as a nation at that point because we believed the bad guys, the Russians were out there, and we were all working towards a common goal because we were working as one nation. It is, unfortunately, in my lifetime, since the 70s when I was born, that we've really lost our direction, I think. We don't have a common enemy anymore. We don't have a commonality between people anymore. And a nation that can't find a commonality fights itself, apparently, and that's what we're doing right now.
One of the things that I believe, and I am trying to persuade people on, is I admit I'm anti-authoritarian, and my father, honestly, he killed fascists in World War II, and he told me about killing people and how horrible that was. I guess nearly as bad as watching his friends fall on him with their heads blown off and stuff. But
not to get too graphic, right?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. These are the kinds of things, honestly, that motivate me, though. And I've heard what war can be like. And
there's been enough talk of late that we're heading towards a civil war.
We do not want a civil war.
And that's what we're really working towards. Is we're trying to alleviate some of the pressure, alleviate some of the angst, and put kind of a pressure release valve in this county so that we can all talk about things and we can all come together and understand each other and work towards a better community.
Yeah, I'm sorry I went off into a dark corner there, but there are some dark corners of humanity that I try to explore in these videos.
Yeah.
Talk about moral foundations theory, which is a fellow named Anthony Haidt has put out there, pretty popular, receiving some attention, and it really does, I think, in a legitimate way, describe the different values from a left and right perspective or whatever, or libertarian perspective. And I try to review that in a broad, inclusive way and in a fair way that describes how we've all become frustrated and I think used and abused by a system that's designed to divide and rule. Before the saying divide and conquer came out, it was divide and rule. You divide a population and then you can rule them. I don't want to be ruled by Stalin or a nationalist. I mean, I don't want any kind of rule for anybody that is authoritarian and domineering and tells people to give up their rights of speech and thought to conform to society. And we are extremely conforming.
We are, but let's get back to Kiva's circle if we could, please. And what do we need? 30 seconds or less, do your elevator pitch if you could now. What do we need to make Kiva's circle successful?
We need people, and people willing to work on this and cooperate. And we need to demonstrate that it works, I think. And that won't be nearly as hard as people think, and it will be enjoyable if we.
They eat at all these functions. That's one of the nice things. You always get a free meal out of this thing.
Well, yeah, once we get enough support. I'm not sure how many pizzas I can buy, but yeah, and doing this with meals is a good idea. Sponsorship would be great. I'm willing to work with anybody, and I think Chris is a guy, and Tiffany, I mean, we want to cooperate to work on this situation together, and I've exceeded 30 seconds.
Well, but you said the big important parts about this, which is we're trying to bring our community together, and we're trying to have a conversation about the issues that we're facing as a community, and we're going to break some bread together, we're going to get to know each other, and we're going to have a positive outcome out of this. And when we're done with it, we're going to hand it off to the commissioners, and we're going to say, this is what we decided.
And hand it off to the community and say, let's keep this movement going at the private level and help our government. Get the citizens together to tell government what is the consensus of the governed, so government knows what to do, because they're confused. I'd hate to be an elected representative now, because if you take a position, you're in trouble, especially if you take one in the middle, because you're going to make enemies on both sides.
And that's the reason why you did the videos with the interviews with Sally Ann Palkovich, Kelly Minty, and Ms. McIntyre.
Emily McIntyre.
Emily McIntyre. And they all said this is a grand idea, that they would love to get the information handed to them that we've gleaned out of this population, So they're very supportive of us, and that's one of the reasons why we've done those interviews and we've talked to those people, because we want to make sure the politicians understand what we're doing. We're not trying to undo the system, but what we're trying to do is make the system work better.
Yeah, and I really enjoy doing interviews, and I know Chris does too. So we'll be arm wrestling and some way to
sumo wrestling.
Figure out who gets to interview. I've reached out to the two commissioner candidates, haven't heard back. I think everybody's kind of quiet in the campaigns these days. Would like to bring in both of the sheriffs and candidates, talk to them, talk to some other people. If we're looking for ideas and ways to make this work, because I have ideas, but I don't know if they're going to work.
So our first steps are we're trying to get a board of directors together. Right. So if you would like to enjoy some time as a board member here, if you'd like to help found this organization, we're looking for board members. And it doesn't take up a bunch of time. It doesn't take a lot of money. It doesn't take a lot of anything. What it does is take some commitment on your part to help see this thing through.
Yeah.
And then once we've gotten the board of directors, then we can set a date and we can start saying, you know what? Let's get this thing together. Let's get this community organized, and let's get us all into a room so we can understand each other and talk about these ideas.
Yeah, it seems like we're a species that's more inclined to fight than work for something. Let's work for our liberties, not fight for them. I think it'll be a lot better if we're all on the same path rather than at odds.
Get back to civility.
Oh yeah, start with that way. Stay with it.
Okay, so what else do we need to talk about here?
I think we pretty much covered it.
I think we hit everything, yes?
Yeah, I could say a lot more about the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and
the reason we set November 5th, Guy Fawkes Day, as the deadline for this event and the deadline for this function here is because that is Election Day. And that's when they're going to be deciding the sheriff's race, that's they're going to decide in the commissioner's races. There's a lot of big things that are going to be happening on November 5th. And so that's why we're starting now. We got 5 months until Election Day. 5 minutes, it seems. 5 months until Election Day. And now's the time for us to get together and start working towards these goals. And November 5th is the deadline.
Yes. And with that, I think we can conclude. And remember my imaginary friend here, Kiva. We ain't mad at nobody. And we have on the slide here for our contact information, my phone number. And I've got a list of people I'm going to be following up with as soon as we finish this.
All those phone numbers you got this weekend, you have to call all those people.
Numbers and emails I got this weekend. So, Chris, I really appreciate your help and support with this.
Yes, sir.
You too, Tiffany. Thank you very much. And sign off.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.